When I start my career as a software engineer, um, I thought growing as a software engineer would means that I need to learn more skill, more framework, more languages along the way, and architecture patterns. Along the way, in early of my career, this is really important. So this belief that we have to focus on learning more skill is not a bad thing. It actually true, mostly true. And those skills are very good in making you get faster and better in building things, in proving yourself, and of course it gives you a boost of confidence. It's like now when you talk to someone and they mention about a new AI tool, say Windsor or maybe skill from Anthropy or anti-gravity from Google, then you understand what they're talking about because you learn about it. You know the buzzword, you know about the new framework, and you feel very confident to share it back to the team as like the expert. And that path seemed very obvious, right? I mean, if you want to grow your career at some point until some level, you have to add more skill from the junior to mid level. Even from mid level to senior, you still need to add more skill. Learning about the new stack is always good. And trying to stay updated with everything so you won't feel irrelevant. But after a while you figure out that you chasing after that, but it's not always really benefit you in career growth, and you realize that the things that work now matter more. It's not about whether you know the shiny new tool, but more about how to how to decide what to build in the first place, how to decide whether that is the good things to build, the good thing to focus at the moment, not about how to build it or what tech stack to build it. And this is where a lot of us get stuck as a mid-level engineer trying to jump to senior and jump into the next level. We thought that we know everything. We thought that we're growing by adding more skill, which means that giving us the advantage to jump to be ready for the next level. But the real shift in seniority is about entirely different thing. The shift in perspective is from building things well, functioning well, delivering things well, to actually questions and decide whether the things that you can build well should it be there or not. My name is Maya. This is Build with Maya podcast, and today we're going to discuss about this shift and this trap in learning more skills. Okay, so let's start with why learn more skill is so powerful in the first place. Well, in early of the career, in engineering career, I'm sure most of us facing the same thing. We are junior. We need to prove ourselves, and the best way to prove ourselves is to show progress. And to progress meaning that you need to learn. You keep learning, and it's visible. You're learning about the new framework that being used at work because sometimes junior, I mean, you just freshly graduate, you're working with something that's school, and in the workplace they're using something new. You have to learn new framework if you are only work with JavaScript, and now you have to learn TypeScript in order to jump into the code base. You need to quickly understand about testing, performance, and anything that can help you get on and work. And each of these skills is expand what you can do within a project within your domain. It is important because it's measurable, more measurable. It's important because it actually gives you confidence to continue. Think about you as junior now. You can actually see that now finally you can understand the code were written in, I don't know, C sharp when you were just focusing on JavaScript. And after a while you learn, you understand how you can declare this, how you can connect this piece in a different language. It's so obvious, like the progress is there, it's not hidden. If you learn it properly, you'll be able to see the result immediately, almost. And you can point to it, you can show to your team, because people will notice that how fast it is to for you to learn about this skill, the system, the architectures, and how fast you do debugging and so on. However, you know one thing, I'm going to talk, I'm going to say it. AI, in this era, AI is can also do exactly the similar things that you are doing. Not just AI, any engineer that have enough time will be able to have the similar capabilities. Everyone can write code. AI can write code faster than you. It even can learn the framework faster than you. You have to go through the documentation. You have to experiment by Hello World projects, and you probably take about 2 or 3 days, or at least a week, to fully understand the framework. But AI with the right data, you can actually see that it give you instant result. It learn instantly how to write code from all the example, and to be honest, you can compete with that. um, so, and it even can debug faster. It even can structure or organize or analyze your code base, giving the overall architectural review of your projects better than you are within 5 minutes. So remember skill from Cloud Code that you just run it on your repo, and then it give you the whole file of architecture markdown that showing you how this repo is structured. Even give you the basic architecture patterns, right? Everyone, including AI, can do that. The speed matter here, but no one can actually beat AI in it because it's just a machine. It can generate the result instantly like this, right? So learning more tools rarely at this point change your impact very much. It just make you slightly faster, make you a little bit more knowledgeable to be able to understand what the AI written. Sometimes you also still cannot understand what AI written because you're not familiar with that, or a little too many text that is make your focus go blurry. But for sure that your impact doesn't change by learning this skill here. The same thing, AI doesn't make a lot of impact to the actual project. It make impact to the code base, to the speed of you doing your work, but not to the whole pictures in general. And so, which means learning tools, learning more frameworks, getting to know the latest trend doesn't really change the way you work. But that actually is something that a lot of engineers, including me at some point, we fail to understand it. We're still stuck in the mindset that in order for me to be able to create more impact or to be able to advance further my career, I need to learn one more thing. I need to learn more. I need to learn this and that in order to be the next level. I need to learn about Kubernetes in order to be able to go for full in, I don't know, Stack Plus, principal architect level. Um, well, it may be true, but in the next level, we always say from mid to senior, from senior to stack, the whole things doesn't always come from technical skill. You cannot run after learning more skill, learning more tool forever because Every day there's a new technology come out. 10 years ago, Webpack was the default bundle management system for every project. Today is Vite, and I don't know about tomorrow. So the next level, these technical skill may or may not be relevant anymore, but it's something more irrelevant for unlock the next level for you is not just learning more skill. It's still important, but it's not that important anymore. It's come more from how you see the problems, the project you're working with in a different angle. And that is where seniority shift is really begins. So in the time when you was a junior, most of the questions you get yourself when you start a new project or you start new features, requirements, you probably jump right into implementation, and then you will start thinking to yourself, how I'm going to build this, right? How I'm going to implement this? Which tech stack should I do in this? Should I introduce a new framework? What framework I'm going to use? What pattern? Whether it's monolith or microservices, micro frontend, whatever. All of this is what matter when you start to build something. It's still important. It's very important questions because you may choose the wrong tech stack that the learning curve is very hard, and then the person who maintain will not be able to maintain it. You're the only one who do it. Yes, job security, yes, but like I say, in the long term, when the maintainability become an issue, this is not this framework, this how to implement it, it's not important anymore. The questions that you will have to ask yourself will become, how are we going to make sure that this is the right things to do? Should we even build this feature in the first place at all? Maybe not. Maybe some things that we need to reconsider. These things change. So let's say from asking a question of how you implement it, whether you accept the feature and then now you need to implement, you need to develop it, how you choose the best tech stack that can give the best performance to the features. This is the how. And then you shift from how to build that to, should we ever build that in the first place at all? For example, you were asked to implement a new component, okay, a new, let's say, a new lookup component, and the technical work is very straightforward. It's the component that you can look up from this asking the server for some query for some data and then display for you the list, and then you can choose A, B, C, D, E, according to your to the user input. And we'll just do filtering, we'll just show according to the typing and so on and so forth. So the technical work can be straightforward. The thing is, you're probably asking yourself, okay, should I use a third party, or let's say maybe I'm using I don't know, Tailwind UI for the UI, or I'm going to develop everything from scratch, or maybe you have to decide whether you're going to write in native JavaScript or an HTML, or you're going to write with React or Vue. That's probably the test tech stack question you ask it, right? But the technical work is very straightforward. This is the requirement. You know how to implement it. You even know what that stack to choose, because if you work in a company, you don't have the freedom of choosing any tech stack. It have to fit into the system of the company. But then the hidden question here, it will be whether these lookup components is really different from, I don't know, a base component that someone else already provide in the design system that you can reuse with a bit of customization. Does it really belong to your product as a whole, or maybe the product doesn't really need this lookup because no one is using it, but customer are not requesting it, but the product manager think that's probably a good idea to add it, right? And are we going to introduce more complexity to performance that we will have to maintain? Let's say, for example, if you do lookup and then you also need to talk about the performance of query in the backend, how to query the data to display paginations. Does this thing affect the complexity of the product as a whole? Like performance, for example, whether another team is doing the same component that we can share the resource, we can collaborate it or not. These questions, no one will tell you. Even the PM may or may not know about this because this question is something that you have to come up with, you have to know, you have to ask yourself around, and this is much harder to figure out. And also, it's because there's no clear answer. Whether or not you use React or Vue, that's the black and white. That's a tech stack. But whether or not this belong to the products you are maintaining, you're developing or not, that's not clear. The one we clear is the user or the PM, or whether there's any other team is working on the same component and maybe you can share it, or maybe you can create a pattern that can be benefit for many teams. These are not clear because you have to research, you have to know which team are using it, and you have to have more exposure. And of course, they have trade-off. If you're using this team component that developed for lookup component, what are the trade-off? Are we fully able to customize it, or we have to compromise something? And these trade-off often will make the system, will define your project, the system, more than the implementation code. Because you may figure out that you don't really need to write 1,000 lines of code. Maybe you only need to write 100 lines of code, and that will be enough to deliver. And that's why senior or staff plus engineer are usually very slow. It takes them more time to actually come up with the design docs, or take it more time to come up with the proper answer for you. And when you ask them a question, they usually will not give you a straightforward answer. It's most likely would say, it depends, or we need to check it out. We need to figure out, we need to talk to this one. They need to think before they decide to build something. And of course, you can see how it works. They will ask a lot of questions in every meeting. They will raise a lot of questions, and they even some of the question will also push back some of the assumptions that made by the PM. I did the same thing also. Some of the time I have to ask questions that push back some of the assumptions, some of the scenario, because it's just not relevant, may not relevant at all. And sometimes the outcome is not what you expected. It can be very surprising. For example, the project or the features is too complex. It's not feasible based on these questions, and then you come out and say, "Oh, okay, these features is not even possible to implement within the range of this release or within the current resource that we have, and we need to have more detail." Or we need to backtrack and reframe the problem, or we found the different solutions that already developed by a different team, and we can reuse it. And then what we need to do is very minimal work. Of course, as an engineer, junior engineer, just engineer in general, you probably would say, I prefer to write everything from scratch. But from the higher perspective, this way is better because you don't have to spend time writing a lot of code, but you can ship it faster, and push the responsibility to other team who develop this component or share responsibility and so on. And this way, everyone is benefit from it, right? But again, this kind of outcome is the kind of impact that you will never see in the bucket of learning more tool or learning more skill, because asking questions is not a skill that you can add multiple times in your learning more skill. You can upgrade asking question by asking better question, asking more question next time, but it's not like learning a new language. It just help you to shape the outcome of a project. It shape the direction, shape the roadmap of a project, of a feature. And yes, this shift is not measurable, and it just shift from the mindset of, oh, I can just sit in a corner and learn about the new tool and then I use it in my work, to I have to go there, ask a question, and um, challenge the PM with my question or push back the questions in order to make sure that the project is going towards to the right direction and we're not wasting time on that. So learning skill feel very safe. You get it, it's clear, you learn it, you know it, you can measure it, and you can tell yourself that I learned this, now I feel confidence because I can list it in my resume, I can list it in my expertise, and when I look at the job description, if I ever want to move jobs, I can feel that I'm not isolated, I'm not irrelevant anymore. But in the other hand, making decision or asking questions is different. It's most likely came from personal experience. The more you deal, the more projects you work on, the more system you work on, the more failure you faced previously. This will give you a good base to ask questions, to make decisions, to decide whether this is a good thing to move forward or not. It's also a very ambiguous and a very personal feeling also, because it involves also uncertainty. You never know whether this is the right decision or this is the wrong decision, or there's no right wrong, there's also great decision here. And sometimes you just figure out that the best decision is just to simply challenging the direction of the feature. So it's like when you challenge the direction, or when you challenge a features, asking a lot more question about features, it can be very uncomfortable and risky for you and for your manager, your bully, and especially in the environment where your productivity is measured by anything that visible output. So the more you question the things, the more the delay the project will be, and until implement, and uh, that can affect your release cycle, your deliverable output. And that's like we said, it may also come up with the decision that that feature is not wanted to implement it or to deliver it on, so you end up with nothing to deliver and you have to choose something else. And if you measure by your productivity is measured by the visible output, like how many features are you released in in the cycle, how many tickets that you close, how many PR you open, how many lines of code you written, then that is not what you want, because that's affect your productivity measurement, which is not true, because you want to make sure that you are doing the right thing, that cause that you close ticket less, or your feature is not delivered as planned for this release, then it look bad on you, right? But again, it really depends on the cultures of the company. But if you look at around you and you saw on your experience or senior or staff plus engineer, you will see that their impact, the value are not measured by this visible output. The more senior, you can see they make less PR. Then they code less. I mean, I code, but I don't code as much as I do like 10 years ago. Um, and the value actually doesn't lie on the visible output, like we said before, on the senior engineer. The value, the value that the measurements come from the impact. Heard about that, right? Impact on the work, on the other team, on the entire team, or maybe cross organization even. So it come from the impact come from whether or not they are reducing the unnecessary works for the teammate by connecting different teams together, by making sure that these features is really what we need to do, and there's no blockade. They unblock this for the team, or connecting the team that can help speed up their development and leave their team with the minimum amount works that need to deliver the feature on time so it can have more capacity for other things. Or they simplify the system, they simplify the solution, and they question the assumption and making sure that whatever assumption is based on the real user demand and user scenario, and that make more sense for developer to implement something that will last and not implement something that no one use. Uh, all of that's connecting the relationship, connecting the dots between the different teams, where we say making uh, infrastructure in the higher scope that will save the times for the whole team to work and increase the deliverable of the team, and of course the velocity, like we said. Sometimes the biggest contributions or the biggest impact is to prevent solutions from being built at all because of its complexity, and may or may not break other things in the long term. One of the things that I learned from my principal architecture's fellow is that um, even if when you think about solutions that is very simple, you also need to think what happened if we remove the temporary solutions away in favor for the proper scalable solution in the long term. Whether anything that we didn't see that can cause a regression in the middle when we remove the temporary solution for a certain customer, these are something that you need to think of. And that's this impact is not always easy to see because it's affect the long-term health of this of the whole project and the team, which means in the long term it will help the team to function faster, to be more productive. But at the short term, it can be a very inconvenience when you have everything that move very slow, very careful, and it wasn't clear that it's the right things to do, and so on. So, but we work in the long term, so uh, this matters. These shifts matter a lot. So let's say if seniority is not about learning more tools or more adding more skill to your resume, how are we know what we should focus on for our growth? One of the it's very hard to know what the right things to say about career growth was from mid-level to senior plus, because at some point, like we said, your impact is not about the tools. The impact is about how you help other team, help your teams to be more productive, and how you help the products to be more scalable and um, become a like deliver some output that is unmeasurable. Yeah, impact. So one change I noticed over time is the way you ask questions is different. The questions you ask is more important than the skill that you know. So you may know about the latest technology. You may know about whether using how to use skill in cloud code to write this and that features for you, but that is implementations. So you can actually now that you can actually ask AI to help you with implementations. But so you instead of focus on implementation, you will look at a PR or you look at a product description and asking question like what exactly what problem are we trying to solve here? Is it the right place to solve it? Is it the right problem we are solving at all? And if we try to go to these directions, what complexity we are facing, what side effect that we can cause for other teams that are using the same code base with us or the same library that we develop in, and who are going to be responsible for maintaining this feature or this solution from now on. So those questions are the questions that are really important that shape the whole system in the long term. But that doesn't mean that technical skill doesn't matter anymore. In fact, when you look at these questions, the technical skills matter a lot. If you don't have the technical skill or experience about how to work with um, GraphQL or relational database, you won't be able to ask the question about whether or not this solution affect any performance because the solution require querying every 5 minutes or querying the database with the join database from different from different tables together. Right. So you still need to have a certain level of technical skill that relevant enough for you to understand what you're asking and or to understand what should you ask. But it's not the main driver of impact. It's more like the tune, the background that you used it as the base to ask questions, but not the direction that you follow blindly. So the real shift here is perspective. So you'll be able to look from the knowledge that you have over the year about front end, back end, about database, about how to deal with a WebSocket push notification, you'll be able to see the system, the whole project in clearly in the higher scope instead of focusing only on components. So you'll be able to understand the consequence earlier and then be able to choose the problem to solve more carefully and more accurately. Those are making the impact right there, and that's help you to grow from just a coder implementer to actual a senior developer with a wider scope, wider view of the scope of the system. And that leads to one final reflection. At some point of the career, we're talking about career growth for software engineer. It it's have a lot of aspect. In this section, we won't be able to tell you everything about career growth because it also depends on the companies, depend on a lot of different aspects for you to be able to move to the next level. But grow, if you are talking about grow itself, grow stop looking like adding more tools. So you don't have to chase after adding more tool to your pocket, adding more skill to your expertise. And AI was now is like MCP is so 2025, which someone would say that it's not relevant anymore. And now it's everything about skill. And who knows, maybe tomorrow something else will replace skill and we have to learn from the start. You simply cannot chase after the tools. You can choose some tool that is matter for you right now and maybe learn a bit here and there along the way. But it's more important for your growth to start asking better questions. And you don't have to know every technology is new out there. It's more important to be able to reason with the decisions you make, the team make. Think about you yourself as the gatekeeper and the one that help the team to move, help the team to function, help to reduce the roadblock, like the blockade for the teams to be able to reach their highest productivity in the long term and not wasting everyone's time on developing something that is not relevant at all. So here's something to reflect on. When you think about your own growth as the engineer recently, are you trying to immediately think about learning a new tool? Or are you trying to change the way you ask the questions during a meeting, during a product review, during a daily, so on and so forth? Think about it. If this episode resonates with you, follow me at Be With Maya on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or on my YouTube channel so you don't miss a future episode. And if you know someone that is currently kind of get stuck in this whole concept of learning more tune, you may want to share this episode with them.